Okay, hey, we're back here at Bloodbath Tactics. Again, in that same studio, that beautiful studio that you guys all loved. I appreciate the comments that you've made before. If you ever want to start your own podcast, this is the Calgary Podcast Studio. Just look them up online. I think the best way to find them is the Calgary Photo Studio when you go to Google, and they'll lead you the right way. But we are here to actually talk about 40K, which is what we love. It's what we do. Yeah. And this focus is about Knights. And we got two resident Knight players.
The
Big
two
Knights, yes.
best Knight players in Calgary.
Only Knight
Full
players.
stop. Full stop. Well, you dabble in other Knights of the Grey variety, but I'm really excited for this episode. This is our Imperial Knights faction focus.
Yeah.
My first ever episode on this podcast was kind of a Knights focus, but it was my first appearance on here many moons ago.
Over a year ago.
Over a year ago.
Yeah, it was back in January 2024 when we started this thing.
Yeah.
So
that's exciting for me. We're back. Lots has changed.
Yeah.
Anybody who's been paying any attention to the big tournaments and the competitive scene knows that Knights are kind of ripping it up right now.
Dominating.
And we'll definitely get into that. We want to talk about, speaking of competitive performance, Brian Jones took down first place at the Cherokee Open.
Yeah.
And another Knights player who I did write down his name, I think it's Ryan. Please hold. Chris. His name is not Ryan. I'm really good with names, guys.
Almost the same.
Chris Bingham.
His name's Chris Bingham. Came second place. Both were undefeated. Brian won all of his games. Chris tied his last game. So
Crazy.
There's clearly something going on here.
Are the lists similar, or are they
No.
wildly? That's really cool.
Well, they are in a very important way, and we'll get into it. And it has a lot to do with allies. I think that's one of the multitude of slow buffs that Imperial Knights have gotten. That Sisters in particular, yeah, for sure. So we're going to jump into Brian's very impressive 8-0 record. Some of them were tight, some of them were smashes. Do you expect that in an 8-game tournament for sure? And we'll go break down how that happened, what's changed, and why are Knights doing as well as they're doing.
I'm excited. Wow. I don't know too much about Knights. I know they have a million OC. And they're actually just a natural stat check army.
Yes.
They're always fun to go against, and it's always a challenge. So I'm excited to get the deep dive in. But I think first, what we want to do is talk about this amazing product that we've been using in all of our I've been using in my tournaments now and all my games lately. Dave's already ordered his box. You can get them on Etsy. It's called Tree of Tales, the Battle Box. Dave, do you want to show it? We have it right down here. You can get it in any custom color you want. It opens up, all magnetized. They make it all for you. 3D print. There's a felt
line box. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a dice tray. So it turns into a dice tray. This one in particular holds 30 dice. You can get one with 60. They're all 16 millimeters, which is like the standard Baron of dice size.
The bigger dice.
I like the square Baron of dice.
Yeah, me too.
Custom moon markers is another add-on that I got. It opens up. There's more storage underneath, which will hold your tape measures, more dice, widgets. Not 9-inch widgets though.
Not 9-inch widgets.
Careful, watch out for the 9.
Or a 6 and a 3-inch.
The 9-inch won't fit in the box.
That's right.
Yes. Another custom thing you can do is they have a set of tokens almost for every army. I think it's mainly focused on the Codex releases, but some require a little bit more tokens. Namely, in my case, Death Guard. If you open it up, it all fits in there. Open it up, they have -1 to wound, -1 to hit, sticky objective.
Feel no pain, stuff like that.
Yeah, and I think that eliminates a lot of errors that we see in tournaments too. Like, oh, hey, no, this one actually had this rule or whatever it was.
For sure. And it's just such a handy organizational tool. Like, people just have their stuff scattered in their backpack or in a box. This
Fraser.
is just nicely packed in. It's amazing.
I know Fraser's not here, but I'm going to shoot fires at Fraser. Messiest player I've played in a long time. He needs one of these.
He needs the same colored dice is what he needs.
That would also be
nice.
Yeah.
I know you're not here, Fraser, but I'd say it in your face too. It also has. He kind of threw this in for me. The top little spot there, it fits the dice. I use it for CP.
Yeah,
I think it's really cool.
Those like little holders. There.
Yeah, so I use an orange dice for mine, and then a black dice for my opponent, and that way I can always keep track. It's been incredible. It makes the cleanup easy. You can go to the next table easier. I just close it all up just like this, and I throw it in my bag. It's all magnetized. It doesn't fall anywhere.
Oh, nice.
Bash somebody with it if you lose really hard.
Well, especially if someone was stealing my shit. I'll bash them with this.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't get me now. Jack Reacher style.
Jack Reacher.
But that's enough of that. If you do want to check them out, we'll leave the link in the description just below.
In the doobly-doo.
It's just an Etsy. They are from Sweden or somewhere in Norway.
Shoot.
He's awesome.
Yeah, they're great.
And they're really responsive. Just if you're getting responses at 3 a.m, it's because the time difference. It's not because
he's up at 3 a.m,
yeah.
waiting for
or
your
maybe
message.
he is.
You
I don't
never
know.
Those
Yeah.
Swedes, they like making stuff. Hey, they like building stuff.
Yeah.
It's just a cultural
I want
thing.
to build.
Maybe that's a stereotype, but it's a good stereotype, so we're allowed to do it, I think.
We're all the same. All right. Okay. Well, enough of that. We'll get
Enough of
into what's
Well-
really tearing up the meta right now.
Well,
right? Or is
before
that-
we get into Imperial Knights, we had over, I think it was on Friday, we had a very important and exciting announcement for a new big Games Workshop Open. So you've got
This is
your,
real.
what is it,
Big deal.
Tacoma, Dallas, the Warhammer World Championships in Atlanta, and now the Edmonton Open.
Western Canada.
Guys,
Very exciting.
this is a big deal. We're all got our tickets ready to rock and roll because this is going to be huge. This is,
I think. And don't quote me on this,
don't
but I
quote 'em.
think they sold 200 tickets within the first hour or so.
That's what they were saying.
Wow.
I saw online somewhere that it outsold Wet Coast in the first day, and Wet Coast was, I think you said 180-ish.
It was no, it was like 200.
Was it? Oh shoot.
I don't remember.
Yeah, somewhere around
265,
200.
I think.
265.
Was it
that
that
sounds
big?
right. Yeah.
Holy
yeah.
crap.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so
They're
we're
similar
probably
size,
probably
but-
north of that already.
Wait. I thought they capped at a certain point.
Man,
though.
I don't know.
Are they hitting 300?
Well,
I mean,
I think Wet Coast on
knows?
BCP right now only has about over 100 enrollments. I'll check right now.
Okay.
Though.
I
a
remember
lot smaller.
seeing
Weird.
somewhere someone say that maybe it was just like a hype advertisement or something, them saying it's already the biggest that Canada has ever seen, which would mean they would have to beat West Coast numbers, right?
Right.
So West Coast was the biggest, I think last year or whatever.
I think
it was.
Gamescom's the one that advertised that, so
So it must be true.
they would be they would have the data.
So,
right?
but I'm extremely excited. I think everybody's really, really excited. I think people around the world were like, where the hell is Edmonton? In fairness.
Now they know.
And now they know it's on the map.
where Wayne Gretzky
having a Games Workshop open 3 hours away is so exciting.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And you think a tournament like this would probably be in Toronto or somewhere out east. So it's really awesome to see it out here.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I just think that the competitive scene in Western Canada has just grown quite a bit, but we haven't seen that love until now. And I mean, White Coast was so big too, right? And these are all those steps that took to get to the spot. And the guys at GameCon lobbying for us.
Right, sure.
I think it's really exciting for the Alberta meta because we're going to have a lot of. I hope we're going to have a lot of big names coming up from the States and out east and maybe internationally outside of North America as well.
Oh, I guarantee you.
hope so.
The Team Canada Discord, a bunch of the Ontario guys are already booking flights, and it's a done deal. So
Can show how strong the Alberta meta is.
yeah,
It's just big, guys. Just go for big.
It's you kind of have to be part of this such a huge event. I know people in our Crusade League who typically don't really play in competitive tournaments and stuff. They're considering, and if some of them have already signed up to join this because it's just such a momentous big event. If you're anywhere near it or you can make it, come. It's going to be sick. And the bigger and better that we make it, the more likely it comes again next year.
I think we're missing a point though.
Yeah.
PlayOn has attributed a narrative event every year to
yeah.
GameCon, and the first year was 50 people, and I was here in Calgary.
Yeah.
The next year in Edmonton was 100. This year is also 100. So whatever the tournament for the G-Dub opens, say it's 300.
Right.
There's going to be another 100 players playing a narrative event for PlayOn Tabletop.
Right. Yeah, because it is a whole big gaming convention. It's Gamescon, right? It's a whole.
Yeah.
There are all kinds of stuff going down.
Well, where they play the narrative event, it's actually in the arena.
oh, cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's pretty cool.
That's
it's a
dope
big
because it's
space.
at the and for those who don't know that aren't local to or not Canadians or not familiar with Canadian geography, Canada, spoiler alert, really really big country, huge, and a lot of that population is centered in the eastern middle of it. So there's a lot of big events in Ontario and like we were saying, Toronto, Ottawa, that kind of stuff. So not that the West doesn't have good Warhammer, but there's not as much population, so we don't see these huge hundreds of person events, with Wet Coast probably being the biggest exception to that rule. So seeing something come out here is a huge chance for the Western, like I said, the Western meta to really show what we got. We have to have a Prairie boy or a BC boy take it down.
Calgary.
Just call it Calgary right now.
Just a Calgary boy has to take this down.
Oh, come on. You don't cheer for the Oilers when they make the playoff?
I'd be happy to see an Edmonton boy take it down.
Yeah, I'd be very happy.
We got to have a West Saskatchewan.
We got
to let's do the West. So Saskatchewan, Alberta, BC. Anybody else got to take it down? That's brownie points for me.
Okay.
On top of their championship, which they probably don't care about the brownie points, but it's all good.
As long as it's Scotty B.
Dude, Scotty B is the bomb.
Yeah,
I'm happy to see
I'm behind it.
Sweet. So that's I think that's it for plugs and stuff. Let's get into the meat and potatoes.
Yeah,
of Imperial Knights. Sweet. So we kind of mentioned up the top, doing really well in the meta right now. Not only do they dominate at Cherokee, what was the one that just happened over the weekend? It was like the Clash or something like that, or the Crash.
Oh.
I was watching on War Games Live.
Yeah, I don't know what city it was in.
Yeah, I don't remember.
There were the Carnival GT.
Maybe.
I thought it was Clutch City GT.
Clutch City. That's what I'm thinking of.
We had
I was watching
third place night placement there.
Third, and I think like fifth or something like that. There was a couple of third or sixth.
Yeah, I only see the top four here.
But they were fighting for the first place. So I believe, if I remember correctly, he tied in the final game.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if he won, to Hinari. That's right. He would have taken it down.
Yeah.
So Knights are doing really, really good.
Yeah. And Jason's from the Clutch City GT is almost the same list as Chris Bringham's. I think it might be.
Yeah, it's pretty much identical. It's what I've been playing, and we'll get into it. I think my list too. But there's Knights are strong for those who are not familiar with them already. Mm-hmm. Knights are the very obvious big toughness stat check, right? You're only running realistically between, in my tournament list, and so in that list, you're running about 14 units, which is not normal for Knights. You're usually in the range of 7 to 10, like somewhere in there, even including allies. Mm-hmm. Knights lists, I think, have gotten more wide rather than bigger, typically, except for Dave, who just is a beast mode running 3 bigs.
Okay, but I mean, it's to be noted that it is a team event. So running a bigger night list is just different than running into a singles tournament.
You're going to have very few win paths with 3 bigs in singles.
But in teams, you can set up those matches pretty easy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is more valuable. Yeah. So you have your armigers, for those who are not immediately familiar with Knights in general. You have your armigers, which are like your baby Knights. T10 across the board, move 12. There's basically a shooting variety and a melee Melta variety. Then you get up to your Questoris class Knights, who are going to be T12 with 22 wounds across the board. Those are going to be your kind of like heavy hitting Knights. Canis Rex being the closest to an auto include that we really have. He's ridiculous. Yeah. He's ridiculous for a number of reasons. The big thing is sustained on 5s on all of his weapons, and his strike in combat is damage 9. So you could just pop off and do 40 damage to somebody. Like it's a thing that happens.
And
you hit on CP. You hit on 2s.
Yeah, he hits
with
on 2s.
Sustained. You get a reroll. So you're hitting like 6 times.
It's nuts.
Is strength 20, so you're wounding,
all the time.
Most things on 3s or 2s. Yeah.
And he's hard to kill. Because when he dies, then Sir Hector jumps out
so little
and
dude
then hides
out.
and runs away.
You got Bring It Down Assassination. You kill it. Okay, well.
So it's actually a common mistake. The only one you do score is Assassination.
Oh.
And it's only because in Pariah Nexus they changed the wording on the card to say model instead of unit. We don't need to get in the weeds on this. It's a really it's a hotly contested point sometimes. But
get in the weeds. Let's do it.
It's good. Yeah.
You want to get in the weeds?
I want to get it. What are you talking about?
So without having the sheet in front of me, maybe I can remember it verbatim, but the rule says that when the Canis Rex is destroyed, the unit does not count as being destroyed until you kill Sir Hector. Okay.
Sure.
Unit being the important word there. On the Assassinate card, they errated it basically as soon as they released the Pariah Nexus pack, and it says when you kill a character model, you get the points. So now, right? So Canis Rex says unit, card says model. Have you killed the Canis Rex model? Yes, the interpretation is yes. But have you killed the unit? No. So everything else, so overwhelming force, bring it down. All these other cards say unit on it, but assassination specifically says model. So that's why you get credit for it.
Okay. Yeah, because essentially the unit itself is Sir Hector and Canis.
You could look at it that way,
right?
sure.
And then you're killing the model in it, but you didn't kill the unit.
They technically are separate because you could get multiple Well, we wouldn't get multiple bring it downs. We could get multiple.
Assassinate.
If you're taking fixed assassinate, sure, you could get multiple assassinates. Or if you were doing no prisoners,
8
for
points
example.
assassinate.
Yep, you could, because they're both characters, right? So that would technically count. But you could get multiple no pris, right? So they are separate units. There's just a weird rule that says you'd only get credit for killing the Canis Rex unit if Sir Hector dies.
If you kill the Canis Rex model,
Yes.
you get no prisoner points?
You do not. You get nothing.
Okay.
Right? That's what I'm saying. Assassination is the
Sorry,
only
I heard
thing.
you wrong there.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah. Assassination is literally the only card, and it's the only reason. I mean, it's just because it says model on it rather than unit.
I wonder if this is a knight-related question, but I wonder what other units where you just kill a single model and it's a character model.
Dark Commune?
Yeah,
Maybe?
Well,
Because they have like the weird, they have like 3 characters in it, right? When they attach.
Gaunt's Ghost? I don't know.
Gaunt's Ghost.
yeah, there's got to be some weird interactions that I personally haven't encountered.
Leave in the comments
Yeah,
if you know any of these weird interactions.
Yeah, this is the question of the week. Find us this interaction.
Well,
Do our
what if
job
you,
for us.
So,
yeah, we don't want to look anymore.
Yeah, there's got to be some weird stuff in there. So
Sure
I
there
think it opens it up. So like, if you were to have like, obviously you precisioned out a model, you obviously get the kill, right? But I guess that would also work for unit because it's also a character unit. Yeah, it's a kind of a very niche. The whole Canis Rex Sir Hector dynamic is just a very niche rule in general. So it's gonna have some weird interactions, but. So yeah, just Canis in general is great. Other good Questoris class knights. You love your Warden.
I like the Warden. Opens up some matchups because he throws -1 damage on an Armiger. And, you know, for World Eaters, for example, the only thing that actually kills that is Angron or the Mo going into it.
Right. Yeah, sure. The Mo.
Like,
Mo
8-bound will not pick a -1 damage Armiger up.
No.
And you have a enhancement in Knights to give your Bondsman ability to 2 Armigers. So now if you have 2 -1 damage Armigers going on your front line, it like
Usually
you said,
a Warglaive, I'm assuming.
Yeah,
Yeah.
usually, yeah.
Yeah.
Completely changes matchups. Like like you said, it opens up matchups that you would normally not even go anywhere near. Makes them wide open.
Yeah, and the Warden also has dev wounds when it's shooting
Dev
against
wounds.
infantry.
Correct.
Which is...
I think it's anything that's not a vehicle or monster, actually. So mounted.
Oh, really?
Swarms. I'm pretty sure it's just not vehicles and mounted. I could be wrong though. It might be infantry.
I'll let you know in 1
I think you're missing out the most important stat
You're right.
of your knights
Yes, sir.
is the OC.
Yeah, so that's what people know him for, right? Big, tough bodies with ton of OC. Every
Piles.
Armiger has 8 OC, and notably doesn't lose it when they become bracketed. They don't lose their OC. So the big knights, the Questoris class knights, when they become bracketed, damaged in this edition, obviously.
10 to 5.
Correct, 10 down to 5. But the Armigers, while they do get a -1 to hit, they don't lose their OC, which is a huge. They'll have to battle shock and stuff, obviously that kind of stuff.
Sure,
but they don't automatically like lose OC like a lot of like damaged vehicles do sometimes, right? So.
It's really good for dominating that primary game.
Oh, it's nuts, man! You throw 2 Armigers on an objective. There's 16 OC. There's very few things that are gonna be able to like out
10
OC
plague
you.
marines.
Sure, like it'll happen, but you're gonna have to dig through so many wounds, and you're gonna be shot back and fought back. It's super tough. We play a really good primary game. Of course, with having so typically few units on the table, secondary is where we're always gonna suffer.
But how do you beat that?
Some people go fixed. I know Dave's a big proponent of fixed. I think I've played maybe 2 fixed games in my entire Warhammer career.
Oh, wow.
I don't see like a good situation for it. But I think Dave would argue otherwise.
I love fixed.
Yeah, why is that?
Well, I love fixed when they give up enough bring it down and assassination points where I don't need to position and stage to play a secondary game, and I can just focus on my positioning to play a killing trading game.
Goes on a basic Warhammer, like just the nitty gritty.
Yeah, exactly.
Kill your opponent.
Who cares about secondaries? Just
but
kill your opponent.
Is there what army? I'm trying to think of an army that gives up very obvious and easy in Pariah Nexus, bring it down in assassination.
It's a few armies.
Like 5 greater demons, right? Obviously.
Yeah, exactly.
But what after that though?
Some tau lists. Just a ton of vehicles, commanders. And, you know, sometimes I'll play against a list where it only gives up 16 assassination or even 12 assassination, but it gives up so many bring it down points that I can pretty much guarantee a 20 on bring it down. And if I can guarantee a 12 on assassination, I'm only giving up 8 secondary points. And, you know, that's usually worth it. And knights are nice in that you have Canis doing a free strat every turn. So you're not as CP hungry as you think you are.
That's true. Yep, I agree. Yeah, there's good strats. Like you've got your rotate ion shields for your 4-up invuln and shooting. You've got, depending on your list, you're going to be using Squire's Duty a lot to buff up your armigers with strength and AP.
Shoulder the burden, depending on the list.
Like Fight on Death is a good
Shoulder
threat.
the burden?
Shoulder the burden is a once per game ability that basically gives you have to be damaged. There's some hoops, a little bit of hoops. You have to be damaged. It's cost 2 CP. And you get basically +1 everything is what I just tell my opponents, because it's +1 movement, +1 leadership, +1 save, +1
toughness
to hit, +1 toughness. Like it's pretty much everything. All like the stats across the top of your sheet. You basically get +1.
And you get to do it again once you become honored.
If you become honored, that's correct.
Yep.
So there are good strats. You're not really using Shoulder the Burden every turn. Usually you're using it once per game.
At 2 CP.
Right, literally. Well, and also it's only a max of twice per game, period.
Or it's 1 on Canis.
Correct. It is 1 on Canis. That's usually the case where I'm using it.
But it costs 1.
It costs 1 on Canis if he hasn't used his ability, right? We do have a +1 to wound against monsters and vehicles. We do have turn your melee weapons into dev wounds. Thank you. Yeah. So like there's lots of good strats, but they are kind of pocket strats. There's not a lot of stuff that you're using really every turn. So
and knights will pretty much kill anything that you show them. So you oftentimes don't need strat support to kill something.
For sure.
And I mean, do you find yourself using the core strats a little bit more often than you are actually using your faction strats?
It depends. You do want to set yourself up for not heroic intervention. What's the heroic intervention? The counter charge?
Tank shock.
Tank shock
for
sure.
Yeah.
Interrupts can be helpful. Overwatch, not so much. So yeah, it's kind of all over the place. But CP reroll whenever needed. But
if that big Melta 6
and
Eldar, you kind of, you're gonna save that CP. Sometimes.
Yeah, 100%. We were going through Questors, Class Knights, Warden, Canis, Errant, like you mentioned. So Errant's got the big Melta 6 weapon. It's 2d3 shots with that, which is a little swingy. But
maybe we're doing chaos. Is it Dragon Spear or?
Oh no, it's a thermal cannon.
Thermal cannon. I think it's called Dragon Spear in.
That'd be cool. They always have cooler names.
Yeah, they do.
Ours are just thermal spear and thermal lance and thermal cannons.
What they are and what it does.
Pretty much, yeah. It's just a bigger version. Think of a bigger gun. That's what that's called. It's the next one up. Of course, mentioning some good enhancements on Knights. The Errant wants to get within its Melta range, which is 12. It's a 24-inch gun. And so you put Mysterious Guardian. So that's your uppy downy. So the enhancement does gives the Knight deep strike. And once per game, you can pick it up off the board and bring it back down.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
That's how you...
That's handy.
It's nice to have.
The Melta 6 range.
Yeah. Getting in Melta 6 range with 2d3 shots with a reroll here and there is really, really good. Aside from those, I think the most other common ones we see are going to be the Cerastus class. So these are your Lancer. That's your Cerastus. They're typically a little bit faster, a little bit more wounds, and...
24? 26?
25 on the Lancer, I want to say. Yeah. It's a few more. It's like 3 more wounds, something like that. It might be 26, but I think it's 25. Your Lancer is going to be your super, super fast. Move 14.
Yeah.
Little to no shooting, but hits. It also is 5 attacks, strength 20 with, what's it called? Lance. Right? Lance is the +1 to wound on the charge. So he's wounding the world, everything in the game on 2s, as long as there's no modifiers, obviously, which is cool.
He's got the native 4-up invuln, right?
Correct. That's actually really good. He's the only knight with a built-in 4-up invuln at all times. Big old shield.
Some of the other Cerastuses have 5-up invulns.
That's right.
In combat.
Even in combat, yeah. But, we'll get to, spoiler alert, we'll get to Brian Jones's list. He's run the Atropos. So that's the one with the 5-up always. Because, again, for those who don't know, Knights only have their 5-up invulnerable save in shooting specifically.
Yep. So,
again, World Eaters matchups, those big, beefy melee matchups are oftentimes really, really hard for Knights because they just evaporate. You throw AP 2, AP 3, AP 4 into
and you could rotate only once,
once in shooting only, right?
Only in shooting. There you
just
go.
In shooting. So if you get into them, they're in trouble, right? So that's the big weakness of Knights. So I think within the Knight meta, there's kind of emerged a couple different trains of thought, and it kind of focuses around how many big Knights you're going to play. Really, that's kind of the the starting decision point. There are different knights you can play, different units you can play, but your starting point should be how many big knights do I want to play with?
Yeah.
And for me, I don't think I'll be perfectly honest. I think I'm not as good of a player as David is, and because I need a little bit more width on my knights list. More units to play with means, I guess, more room for error, but also more units to cover different positions and trade more effectively and stuff like that. When you only run one big knight, which is what I've kind of been doing in my tournament lists, and a bunch of armigers and some allies, you have a lot of pieces that can follow up with each other, trade efficiently, and cover the board efficiently. When you run something like 3 knights or 2 knights, whatever you're kind of comfortable with, David, you really have to get your points value out of those big knights. Like if you don't trade effectively with what's 3 big knights, that's like 1,300 points ish.
Yeah.
Right in that range. If you don't trade effectively with 1,300 points, you are going to lose every single game.
Well, I'm assuming you use your war glass as like a trading piece, but also bait to get that charge in and a good heroic.
Yeah. You use them as your initial trade pieces, and then you bait out because it's not easy to kill an armiger with -1 damage on it and a 6-up feel no pain.
Yeah.
So you do need to commit something into it, and once they do commit something into it, then you can start trading with your bigger knights and forcing those weird interactions, the awkward interactions. Rather.
Sure. The toughest part I found for me, and maybe you can shed some light on this, is if I'm running 2 or 3 bigs. Obviously, like you said, you want to bait out with the armigers. But I have a hard time in the late game having lost, because if you're running 3 bigs, you're running what, like 4 armigers or something like that?
Yeah, 4. You can squeeze 5 depending on your bigs.
Right.
But yeah,
somewhere in that range.
And if you're a lunatic who takes a Castellan or a Valiant, then you're taking 3 bigs, 3 armigers, and some support, or just 4 armigers, and that's it.
Right, and I've again, this is maybe just a gap in my game. I've found that when I trade early with armigers, and I have very few of them, then I find myself struggling late game to get secondary points. Yeah. Which, I mean, I guess you just play a different game, right? You play the super, super dominant primary game, and that kind of shores up your kind of lacking secondary. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's why they like fixed.
Right, that would be the argument for fixed, hey?
Yeah.
Especially if you're going big, right? Because you're going to be at that point where, like, hey, they go after your little guys. Then what do you do?
But we're talking in the context of teams with 3 bigs, because you're a crazy person if you're bringing 3 bigs to a singles. You're not crazy. You're just you're having fun.
I did it one time, and it was the worst experience. It was Rumble in the Rockies. We did a podcast after, and I was like, I don't think I want to play Knights anymore. It was really, really on really bad terrain for that as well. It was just like the perfect storm of like, don't do this ever again. It was a bad idea.
I went against he was such a lovely guy, an awesome opponent, but I went against an opponent in Edmonton Open Trident, and he had 4 bigs.
Ooh. There's on the
and he literally had a dice tray saying 4 big knights.
That's right.
They were painted beautifully. Obviously a terrible matchup with Morven Vol.
He picks
up a knight.
Oh my God.
I think we were both done, and like, oh well, this we get a break. I think we were done. The round started at 8:30, and we were done by 9:25.
Yeah, sure.
Sure.
Yeah, I was just wandering around for 2 hours. Watching you play Matt.
Watching me lose my shit.
Yeah. God, I just want to mist. Let me mist.
Yeah. So
he would just come outside of 9 with the breachers. Oh yeah, it's funny.
Yeah, it's nightmare.
Yeah. And every night player has had those games where you just like you did your best, you threw your stuff out there, you didn't make the saves when you needed to make them, and then you're just done.
It was funny when we were playing. He committed two of them right to the center. I was like, and this is turn 1 for he was in the bottom one. I was like, oh my God, it's turn 2.
And Morven Vol's right there.
I guess it's time to go.
Yeah.
I just went nuts because they were right there, and I had to take the chance.
Of course, he
gives you shoot the back one, you charge the front one, and then I'm like, okay, now we're going into turn 3, or actually, sorry, we're going into turn 2. That was turn 1.
Right.
I was mistaken. Yeah. Now we're going to turn 2. Do you have 2 knights?
If you are playing 3 bigs at least, you're playing a 5-turn game because you want 5 turns of activations on your big knights.
Sure.
Right?
That makes
because
sense.
as soon as you lose one,
I found it such a tricky balance because I was running. It was Canis, Errant, and Warden. This was a while ago. This is like over a year-ish ago, something like that. And yeah, you find this very delicate balance of like you want to have your warden far back enough that he's giving out the bondsman ability, but he's not getting charged himself. And Kass has to kind of like act as the bait for the errant who backs him up. Like it's a weird shell game that I'm not good at. I've gone more the route of, and we kind of mentioned it at the top. One of the big buffs to Knights was the Agents of the Imperium Codex, which is a codex, an army in its own right, but not really. But not really.
It's fun. It's a bag of soup.
It's a whole bunch of stuff.
Whatever it's like your leftovers in your fridge, and you just kind of put them together and said, "Hey, I made you a stew, hun." Like,
I don't understand this metaphor. And then someone else comes and steals your stew and uses it. Is that what we're doing? Okay, I lost the metaphor here, but the Agents of the Imperium...
I guess they'd be on a buffet, and they're like, I guess I'll throw this stew on there.
The Agents of the Imperium Codex was a big buff to Knights players, and I think it took a little bit of time to figure out like what is worth it and stuff. I think the Cowardice Assassin is also, especially in a singles event, as close to an auto-include as you're going to get. Kass and Cowardice are just perfect. You're shaking your head.
No. So good. I'm like,
good.
Oh, it's so good.
I thought you were like, no, Cowardice. I'm like, that's too hot of a take.
So that's good.
Everybody that's winning is taking it. No, it's terrible.
Yeah, it's terrible. No, it's 100 points for Uppy Downy for the Vect Aura now. It's fantastic. It shores up one of our biggest weaknesses in the secondary department. But aside from that, people did a lot of testing with subductor squads, so big units with 4-up invulns. 10-man units. You've got the one that we're going to get into because it featured in both of the big lists that won at Cherokee is the Sisters of Battle and the Sisters Immolator package.
Yeah.
So for those who are not familiar, the Immolator, if you take it, not only does it can be equipped with a Flamer, which gives us a nice Overwatch threat that we don't really often have access to.
And you Flamer over the Melta. That's obvious, right?
It kind of. I've taken both to. It depends, right? It depends on if you have a read on your local meta. Like in Calgary, we love our big monsters and vehicles.
Sure.
Like there's not a lot of people running a lot of like infantry spam. However, we are going into an Eldar meta, so all of a sudden the math probably changes on that, right? So it has a hunter killer on it, which won't do anything. Obviously, that's what hunter killers do.
It hits on 2 though. So
yeah, but they miss like 50% of the time. That's how it works.
Oh, I know.
You know how it works.
I do.
But most importantly, it has 2 abilities, which are very key. So the first one is after it has shot at a target, the target it has shot can no longer benefit, one of the targets it shot, can no longer benefit from cover. And the other thing is if you take a Sisters of Battle unit, you can split it into 2 5s, and one of them has to start, obviously, in the vehicle.
Yeah.
So...
And they sticky, right?
And the Sisters themselves, so the Sisters themselves have sticky objective. They're 2 little cheap units you can use for scoring, and they have a Melta and a multi-Melta. You can kind of kit them out how you want.
Yep.
But you give them a Flamer, I think, too, but I usually throw the Melta on there.
I think you just do double Melta.
Yeah.
It's either Melta or Flamer,
yeah,
or heavy Flamer and multi-Melta.
Yeah, there's some combination.
Yeah. So I think you just, I don't know, in my mind, I think you just always take the Melta. I'd rather just high reward.
100%. 100%. Especially in a Knights list, your opponents, your big threat targets that you want to kill are oftentimes other vehicles, other monsters. So having an extra, it's not going to.
Do you find they activate, or are they more just advancing onto objective?
Very rarely are they activating.
Yeah.
But it's nice to have like your Immolator, say on your expansion or in the middle somewhere, and then if you just need a little bit more firepower at late game, you pop them out, give it a shot,
and grenade.
And that's what I was going to say as well. Actually, they give you access to grenades as well, which we don't have access to at all. And sticky objectives. So the one with no special weapons just sits on your home objective, stickies it, then screens.
Is that what the seductors are doing though, or seductors?
They could do a similar thing for sure, but they are a better unit for screening because they are technically an 11 unit with the dog.
I think in an Eldar meta, and maybe just like if you're going against your Nari, I think I would rather them on my home objective so they can't just move and just warp spider you. Because I think with the 4-up invol, at least you can probably save some. Where with Sisters, you're probably not saving any, and at a 5-person, it's just gonna be gone.
That's
and you
fair.
might not even get your sticky at that point, depending on the
timing of it all. Sure.
Yeah.
It does sticky at the end of your command phase, so there is a world where they don't get it off. Eldar player goes first turn, just blitzes your home objective and takes it. It could happen.
I feel like you've made a mistake if that happens.
That's for sure. You should just have an armiger or 2 towing your home objective, and that problem doesn't happen. Right, but you're not wrong. The subductor squad is good. It is a bigger footprint. They are tougher. I think it's 110 points somewhere in there. But even just having access to these allies is huge. Previously, we really only had access to the assassins, and there was some play sometimes with like the Eversor assassin. I ran in a tournament. I think you ran it in one as well.
I used to run the Eversor before the Codex came out.
Yeah,
and then it's just too many points.
Yeah, he went up a lot. The Vindicar assassin. Vindicare, I think it's actually pronounced. Went up to 100.
I don't care what his name is.
I think it's Vindicare. I think it's the Vindicare temple. I read a book. So I mentioned it in our last podcast.
Is that the one with the psychic, the anti-psychic?
No, that's the sniper boy. Vindicare is the sniper boy. The psychic guy is the Calexis assassin. But if for Knights players out there, and most of you have probably already read the book, and I mentioned it to David last time, it's called Assassinorum Kingmaker. So it's technically focused on an assassination mission from the Inquisitorium. Is that who makes the orders and stuff? They're doing a mission. I don't want to spoil anything too much, but the mission is on a night world, and it's the coolest book ever. Features a Valiant at some point, so you got to read it. Obviously, it's on. I don't actually read books anymore. I just listen to them on Audible. So it's on Audible. You're good that way.
Could you?
I do know how to read. Believe it or not.
The future now, man. Nobody reads.
That's right. Nobody reads.
I just read, Codex spoilers.
That's right.
That's where I get my reading in.
That's right.
Yeah.
I read codexes. So allies being way better. The other thing I think that fed into the recent increase in the Knight performance is the most recent points decrease we got. So it's kind of a sneaky one. It was kind of under the radar, but both the Helverin and the Warglaive went down 10 points each.
Yeah.
And when you're running, let's say on the high end, you're running, how many was I running? 10? 9 of them. That's 90 points in your list. Or even if you're only running 4, that's 40 points in your list to work with, right? That's
an enhancement.
That's an enhancement. That's an upgraded, that's taking your gallant up to a errant, if you want, right? These are points we can really, really work with. And in the current Eldar meta, I'm actually kind of surprised to see them doing so well because fire dragons are such a threat.
They're going to go up.
They're such a cheap threat. They're going to go up in points. Yeah. But fire dragons are, if I'm not mistaken, unless they have some kind of other character support and stuff, they're wounding even armigers on 5s. So even they're re-rolling it. Obviously, they're rolling hits, wounds, and damage, which is the nuttiest rule I've ever seen on just their data sheet. It's crazy.
No Overwatch a million move.
Right? Yeah. Nuts. Yeah. But you can still whiff on re-rolling 5s.
On average, it doesn't kill an armiger.
Plus, we feel no pain's math. It makes the math even a little bit worse, right?
Assuming you pop rotate, but I mean...
That's actually an interesting question. If you only you're looking at 5 fire dragons, do you pop the rotate?
Guess it depends what else they have lined up.
That's true. 100% true.
But if it's just 5 fire dragons and nothing else is lined up,
I might even just save it for a reroll on my 5-up. Right? Because if if he whiffs, he only hands me 1 save. Cool.
I think you just pop the 4-up
rather than wait on a 5. I think
it's just an armiger at the end of the day. They're trading 90 points for 130 points.
40, yeah.
130 for a Warglaive,
and
right?
a CP.
Or is it 40?
I think it's 140 for a Warglaive, 130 for a Helverin, I believe.
Yeah. Still, and of course that Fire Dragon squad is dead next turn. No problem.
Mega dead. Super ultra dead.
Yeah.
So, I'm a little bit surprised to see Knights doing well, but I think, like I said, it's a combination of a few different factors over the course of the past, let's say, year. And now we're doing really, really well. So the list that I've been running in singles that's been doing pretty good, and to that point, the guy who came in second at Cherokee ran the exact same list.
Cool.
It's going to be
that feels good.
It does feel good when you're when you've been running it for I don't know. I've been running it for
a little bit,
3-4 months. When was the first time I borrowed Sisters?
Since the LV can't go, you've been running that list.
Yeah. That's why I think that was probably the first tournament I actually took it to, but I kind of was workshopping it for a while, and not that I discovered it or anything like that.
So in context, the first week of December.
Yeah. So a couple months ish, almost 3 months ago now, something like that. It is Canis Rex because, of course, you've got it breaks down to 4 Helverins, 5 Warglaives, a Calidus Assassin, a unit of Sisters, an Immolator, and that's it. Yep, that's the list.
Cool.
So that is 14 units. So a Knight's list with 14 units is a ton, and people who can't deal with T10 just are going to struggle no matter what, right? You're just slamming. You can trade well. You can play that aggressive game. You can play that passive game if you need to. You put a couple. I think every game I've ever played with that list, I put at least one Helverin or one Armiger of either class into reserve, just to keep your opponent honest. They got to kind of screen out a little bit. They can't just give up on their backfield. Additionally, when you're playing that kind of list, Squire's Duty is you live and die by it, right? Because the combo is your immolator shoots something, right? You give Squire's Duty to at least 2 or more, because it has to be.
What is Squire's Duty?
Squire's Duty gives at least 2 armigers, so you have to target 2 armigers. Looking at the same target, that's an eligible target. They get +1 strength and +1 AP against that target.
Okay.
If you're honored, it's +1 damage. That doesn't happen very often, but then it gets real spicy.
Sure.
So what you do is you have at least 2, but in that list up to 4 Helverins with 8 shots, AP1, flat 3 damage. Now goes up to strength 10, AP2, flat 3 damage. Give them ignore cover, and you're ripping stuff up. So, and the other deal with the Helverins is they also have an anti-fly rule. So if they're wholly within your deployment zone or on an objective they control, they get anti-fly 2+.
Yeah, so you just
so no dev wounds there, but as soon as a demon Primarch shows its face in that against that list,
or half of Eldar's army,
or wave serpents, or I mean you're wounding all Eldar on 2s anyway, so it's not a really big deal with strength 9 or 10 in that matter. But
well, no, because
it's all 3 up saves though, so that's
right, exactly. The extra AP is super helpful. It's a amazing combo that gives, because everybody knows the pain of having AP1 weapons, right? It sucks.
And then they get in cover, then you're just like
everything has cover all the time. AP1 in most cases might as well be no AP, right? It's just it feels bad. The immolator ratchets that up to 11. So you all of a sudden have really big threats, and then of course your Warglaves don't really care about it. They're all melt all over the time, so it's AP4 all over the place. But even
AP5 sometimes.
Even the Warglaves, they're
AP5 against like a Land Raider or Leman Russ.
Exactly,
100%.
And going to strength 13, you wound on 3s.
Yeah,
there's lots of things that have that profile in the meta. Maybe not so much anymore. You got Hecatons, you got Land Raiders, and then you have lots of T12 stuff that has an invul, which is less relevant, but. You still probably use that to wound on 3s 100% anyways.
You do. And the nice thing about the awkward thing about Squire's Duty is that you have to announce it at the start of your shooting phase. You can't like see how things go and then activate it. That's a bit of a pain, but it's not a big deal for players who are just kind of thinking ahead and planning out their turn, which is a good thing to do in all contexts. So Squire's Duty is huge. That's a big list. That list, like we said, what was the name? Ryan? We'll jump into a little bit of the nitty-gritty on those in a sec, but you're more of a fan, and we kind of mentioned it, of the 3 bigs and or 2 bigs. Would you think, you said you'd probably never take a 3 big list to a singles event. You think you could see a 2 big list though?
To singles, I personally wouldn't, just because I'm really jiving with my other armies. But yeah, if I was going to play competitive singles, and this also has to do with I don't have 8 armigers to play with, I would probably do two big. I do Canis and maybe a Warden.
Yeah.
And I'd just play armigers and probably the
Sisters package.
The Sisters package.
Ooh, that'd be good,
what about Warglaves? Like a number of those?
Well, whatever the math breaks down is like you kind of just
usually it's 4 and 4. I think having more Warglaves is a little better because when you look at the math on Helverins, basically 2 Helverins shooting at Angron with the strat and ignoring cover does 15 to 18 wounds.
Yep.
And that's all you need for 2.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
That's it.
That rinses them.
And then, I mean, we can consider that now with, EC coming in with Fulgrim.
Same defensive profile.
Exactly.
And doesn't have a feel no pain.
Yeah.
It doesn't have one yet. So.
Yeah, obviously Mortarion and Magnus don't go down as quickly, but they still just go down. They just collapse. We've done it before.
It's some significant chip damage that they do to Morty.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But then, so I guess So
it just takes a little bit, just one extra activation. I think is really where the math comes in. But that's about it. Then he's just gone.
So speaking of 2 bigs lists, let's get into really quickly how Mr. Brian Jones performed at the Cherokee Open. Whatever it's called. I think it's a Cherokee Open. It was a big event. Brian Jones, of course, of Art of War fame. And he went undefeated at the event. So we mentioned this is an 8-0 performance. It was very, very impressive. I broke down his list here. He went with, so it is too big. So it's Canis with an Atropos with Mysterious Guardian. So the Atropos is one of those Cerastus Knights with a 5-up invuln always.
And decent melee profile.
He has a really good melee profile.
He's very similar to Canis. He's basically like a Canis that does less output, and funnily enough is tankier.
Tankier than Canis. He has the exact same gun as Canis, except not sustain on 5s, and another gun that's like an anti-tank gun. Basically.
But sustain on 6?
Sustain on 6 is still,
okay, so sustain.
Yeah, still has sustain, just not on 5s. But he has a melee profile. His bonds and ability is like versus Titanic, so that doesn't really happen. But his built-in ability is +1 to hit and wound against vehicles. It's one or the other. I can't remember. It's super, super good.
Wow. He's great.
Canis, Atropos. I think it's the only Cerastus class that's only in resin still. So it's a little bit
harder.
Not everybody's getting their hands on it, right?
Yeah. It's 3D printed.
Or 3D printer go burr, of course.
And it has the uppy downy strat.
And the uppy downy strat.
Which is just ridiculous having that ability on a 450 point model. It actually makes your opponent zone out their deployment zone.
100%. So Canis, Atropos, he's only got 1 Helverin with Stubbers. He's got 3 Warglaves with Stubbers as well. Caldus Assassin. And here's the interesting ally tech. He takes 2 Immolators, 1 Sisters unit, splits them.
And puts them both in each.
Puts them 1 in each.
Yeah.
And then a 10-man subductor squad. So those guys holding with the 4.
I really like that he did 2 emulators because you're giving the opponent another T10 data sheet to try to shoot down, and it's actually just a decent trading piece where you can start initiating combat on their own terms.
Yeah.
So you can have one in the expansive, and then you can have the one for the area denial. But if they want to come in close, you'll have that Warglaive, Canis Rex, or Abductor.
Yep.
Like whatever combo you want to put near it, depending on the matchup.
Yep.
And sure, you have Halverns just for some backfire, and I think that's really what it is. Like I think some matchups they'll probably shine, but for the most part, you just want to initiate a game state by having the emulators push up. And screening as well, and then you can also push out with Sisters and have a grenade there, and then not one's dead. Now I sticky this one, and then you can kind of move forward from there. So I really like having the second emulator, and also another way to strip cover.
So two of them can strip cover. When I first saw this list, it didn't make any sense to me because the way I use the emulator in that list that I outlined was extremely defensively, using it for its strip cover purposes and stuff. But you
only have one.
But I only have one. And we were actually lucky enough to see Brian Jones play, I think, at least 1 game on stream during this event.
Oh, War Games Live?
I think so.
Okay.
I think so. And he uses it very differently. He uses the immolators as like the first trade pieces, right? It's stripping cover, it's doing that stuff, but he's putting them out there, like you were saying, to be the bait, right? Don't bait with your armigers because you don't have that many. You're not going to bait with your big knights because they're your counterpunch, right? They're your mid to late game hitters. He's baiting with the Sisters units.
And you got to commit something to kill the emulator. It has a 6-up invul.
It does.
Now, when it dies, you're going to hit 5 Sisters sitting out there with 2 OC each, so 10 OC. Mm-hmm. Are you taking the point?
Yeah, then you have to go get it off them, right? Yeah. And then if you don't take it off them, it's going to flip over to my turn. I'm going to stick these objectives with the girls sitting on it. So it's a very different way to play the immolators, but it's Brian Jones is known for being a little bit quite innovative in the Knights sphere, which Knights doesn't have a ton of innovation, right? We don't have the list depth of, say, a Necrons or a Space Marines and stuff like that. So to come up with something really kind of original and that worked obviously incredibly well, my hat's off to him. He did a fantastic job.
Yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I like the immolators because the blast, high volume, like anti-infantry, anti-elite infantry is all AP1 on the big knights.
Yep, that's right.
So if you're shooting into Terminators, you're not killing anything. Suddenly the ignore cover, you're probably killing a few Terminators with that shooting.
Yeah, the big knights love the ignore cover as much as anything else does, right? For sure.
Listen to a podcast with him. He also played the Calidus. I think we got to mention this one as well. He played it very aggressively a lot of times. I think he was winning against World Leaders round 2 or 3, and he ended up obviously putting it up front. But like they have an amazing strat of +1 to wound, but that's going to cost him 2 CP to 100%. Do it. And the guy charged with World Leader Terminators, not 8 pounds, but World Leader Terminators. He heroics with Calidus.
Interesting.
Right?
Just to chew up a couple of them or one or.
Yeah, but so now the Calidus fights first. It chews up. I think it did chew up two Termies.
Sure.
That's
Which
10,
is 10
that's
probably,
attacks.
That's ambitious.
I was
but
going to
yeah.
say that's getting pretty lucky, but I mean,
I think he
go
rolled
for
lucky,
it.
but even if you kill one, that's 5 less attacks.
Sure.
Yeah, and now he has to pile in towards the Calidus, and there's less attacks.
That's what I was
going
going to
into
say.
the
You
big
could just, depending on the position, you could just pull out 3 or 4, maybe 4 Terminators out of the fight that he wanted to go into in the first place.
Yeah, I think he did
Even
admit that
that's
he
valuable.
diced it pretty good at that
Sure.
particular.
Sure.
I think he did get 2. But even if you kill 1, then you have to pile in, say, 2 more. You have to dedicate 2 Terminators to this, and then the rest go on the night. And then the CP for the 2 CP for the +1 wound.
Yes.
I think you're just winning in that whole interaction.
The CP, that's a huge, and actually the last time I played Frazier, I did lose the game, but one of the things that almost kept me in the game with my Knights was if I knew where his 8-bound were wanting to charge next turn, I slapped the Calidus in so that if you get into me, you're +1 CP on everything you're doing. That's a huge, huge play. The other play that I heard people doing with the Calidus recently against World Eaters is when you have your Lord Invocatus, once they put their Lord Invocatus down, and you know you have an idea, at least you should have a good idea of what he's going to scout with, just slap your Calidus right in front of him.
Yep.
Slap your Calidus right in front of them so they cannot scout.
And they cannot. Well, they can do it for 2 CP, but they're not sticking on death.
That's who. There's tons of play. Your Calidus is your best friend
Huge.
in that kind of matchup.
Are you willing to sacrifice it that early? Like, does that actually change the game state?
You don't have to.
You don't have to. It's going to be very situational. I don't think you're doing that in every single game that comes up, but
On what game would you do that then?
one where your deployment's like, so not search and destroy, it won't do anything, obviously, but like a good deployment like Tipping Point or something like that where they're pretty far from you, and if they don't get that scout move, you are going to be legitimately safe on turn 1 and 2.
Wouldn't search and destroy actually be the ideal? Because they're kind of cornered in this little spot. So when you put up, they're never going to scout forward on you.
They kind of just go around you.
But if they scout sideways, it's kind of where you want them to be anyways.
I think they get enough ground. I think you're just close enough in general on search and destroy that's just not worth it.
Sure,
because
okay.
what they're going to scout then, if you try to put it in the middle, he can't scout towards you. Okay, great. He'll just scout towards your expansion, right?
Sure.
Right. So then, then you put it on the expansion, but he can just scout straight through the middle. I just don't think it's a good deployment for
I guess
it.
I'm just thinking of like typical layouts in search and destroy, and then usually your expansive is just like wide open. So if they want to like scout on there, go for it.
There's some fun plays you can do with it too, because depending on your terrain layout, if you have ruins that are high, you can place the Calidus on like the 3rd level.
Oh, that's a good point.
And you zone out 12 inches horizontally for your minus +1 CP usage bubble, and you can't just charge it anymore, and you can't shoot it because of
That's
Lona.
spicy. I didn't even think of that.
Yeah,
but I didn't think of that because a lot of time I play on terrain that doesn't even have upper floors at all. But it's a good thing to keep an eye out for.
yeah. If you're ever playing on WTC, it's pretty easy.
That's
to do.
huge. That's
Yeah,
a really
you
good
can
point.
find one with 3rd floor, for sure.
So, Brian Jones did very, very well. Like I said, 8 games, undefeated. A couple highlights. I kind of went and did a quick recap of all of them. We're not going to dig into them, obviously. His very first round was against Eldari, Aspect Host. So, could be a tough game. I think Eldar just going to be strong in general. I didn't go and read the exact units in what he was playing against, but he had a commanding win. It was an 82-56 in that game.
Do you have the list up?
I do not have the list up. I'm sorry. Maybe we
I'm
can.
curious
Maybe,
what it was.
I was
maybe
just wondering if he was
scroll
running
it through in
the
post.
10 Dark Creepers with the
Oh, I don't know. Sorry,
Tark in it.
I don't know off the top of my head.
I'll find out while we keep going. I'll find out.
Sure.
Yeah, appreciate it. That actually another good thing to note of this is a good a good indicator, I should say. Excuse me. A good indicator of a healthy meta is that he did not play. He played 8 different factions through the whole tournament. Right. Usually, especially at top tables, you're going to see your Eldars and your repeats and stuff like that. 8 different armies he played against. So, Eldar. Next round was obviously into World Eaters, so a tough one for us, but he managed 166 against World Eaters, so clearly dominant. He went into Death Watch, game 3, which is a bit of a weird dark horse that's been performing better than I think people were anticipating it would, but I think it took down a pretty big event a few weeks ago. So that's a nice win. He went against Space Wolves, game 4. The win was 100-48. It was a pretty typical Space Wolves with made a note of 12.
I think you were saying he was really scared of it for some reason.
We
I think
could
it's a +1 wound, and the auto advanced blood surge can really stop any movement and then dominate the primary. I think that's what he was
100%.
mostly scared about. And apparently he got. Do you know what? I don't know. I thought he got lucky or something.
sure.
He was afraid of that matchup.
Oh, I guarantee he was. It's a super bad one because the I guess weakness of Wolf Jail is
so
that
it was round 1 for aspect?
round 1 was
Okay,
the
cool.
aspect host.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, keep going. Sorry.
No, you're all good. I appreciate looking up. The weakness of Wolf Jail is that they can't go through walls, right? So for fast infantry armies, they can kind of outmaneuver the Wolf Jail, but knights also cannot go through walls. So the weakness of the Space Wolves list is also our weakness. So it is a super tough one. You run the risk of being put in Wolf Jail permanently.
Yeah.
It was
being
round
stuck.
2, so thank you for
Because all the big knights guns are
yeah.
blast
Brian
You
also.
went round 1 against orcs. Sorry, David. I didn't mean
Yeah.
to. Go ahead.
Yeah, because all the big knights guns are blast, so you actually can't dig out in shooting. You have to fight out of the wolf jail.
What are you talking about? Did I?
Yeah, I think it just did that. Remember that time when I was looking at it and it did the weird like switch?
Yeah, well, BCP does weird things.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I could be wrong about this whole entire list, but maybe the orders mess up. But here's an interesting one: Game 5, Votan, tough one.
Yeah,
very tough one. For those not super familiar, Votan with their judgment tokens can make 4 units as soon as the game starts, +1 to hit and +1 to wound. So when you have all of this shooting, it's they have mass volume of shooting, not typically super high strength. They do have like their rotary cannons, the high las cannons and stuff like that are higher up there.
The bikes will pick up.
Right, the bikes all of a
whatever.
sudden hitting on 3s, wounding on 5s. They just chip away at your armatures, chip away at everything. Right, you should. There's wounding a T12 thing on 5s.
And the CP economy at that point is just massive because
it's a mess, man.
Yeah.
Because you don't have that many units. The chances of them, one of the ones having judgment tokens they're going to kill is very likely and very likely early.
100%. Well, because the fun thing about Votan is they put the judgment tokens on you after you deploy.
Yeah.
So they just say, oh, your big knights are on the front line. Boom, boom. The 4 things that are closest to me.
The
are now
warglaive
judged.
that you want to trade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Now you're gonna give me 4 CP if
The
that happens.
immolator that's going to come out right away.
100%.
Yeah, it's super tough. Super tough.
And especially if it's a grindy game and it comes out, and then hey, now I just got 4 CP.
Yeah.
Now I can do a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
And I mean their armor contempt is I know it's less good, but it's probably pretty decent against you still.
Yeah.
Oh, it's super good. Yeah, they have lots of tools. So it's a super tough matchup. And testament to that fact is that he won that game by a single point, 62-61. That is a toit type game.
So I have the list here.
Yeah, this is the
So
aspect
Azerman,
toast. Of course,
Avatar of Cain,
tough.
Euthrain, Fugan, Lachillis, 10 Storm Guardians, 2 Wave Serpents, 10 Dire Avengers.
Okay.
A unit of 10 Fire Dragons. 2 units of 5 Howling Banshees. Then 2 Rangers, 1 Warlock Conclave, and 2 units of Warp Spiders.
Oh, so no Dark Reapers.
Yeah, there's really only 2 units that kill knights in that whole list.
Yeah.
The Avatar and the Fire Dragons.
Yeah, the Fire Dragon with Flagon. Yeah. But mind you, they'll pick up, like, if you let them, they'll pick up 2 or 3.
Sure.
Like, that would be rough.
I don't know if they have a way to get back in the transport. So I think as soon as they're out, they're kind of out.
It's a one-way trip.
Yeah.
Suicide Mission. Yeah, he clearly handled it. Then he went.
Yeah, they have a lot of useless units in this. Like
against knights,
I see about 6 useless units. Yeah. They're not going to do anything.
Well, they'll be good for mission play, but they're not going to touch knights.
Yeah,
for sure. And that's obviously the strength of knights. Cool. So game 6, he went into Creations of Bile, so some Chaos Space Marines. He managed that one, 89-77. Game 7, he had I actually think this was one of the ones that was streamed. It was into Tyranids. It was Invasion Fleet, and I think the opponent, if I remember correctly, basically deployed 2 Tyrannofexes just like ready to blast the midboard if he went first. He didn't go first, and in turn got a little bit whacked, which is kind of the big gamble you play against knights, right? So Brian managed to take that one down 96-69. Giggity, obviously. And then game 8, going into the Orcs, their Tactical Brigade, which is a very good detachment. I think a lot of Orcs are having a lot of good success with Tactical Brigade with 2 Ks in there. But I don't think they have a lot that threatens Knights. Obviously, it's a melee matchup, so we don't love the melee matchup.
Do they do it even without the amount of the weight of dice?
Like they can, but it's not enough. I don't think.
Because it's still wounding on 6s, right? Strength 5 weapons. Yeah, it's not going to do it.
Yeah, so it's tough. They have a tough one. Again, the melee matchups we don't love. We don't love being hit with a whole bunch of power claws. We don't love that. But
and the move blocking and auto seeing on points is probably your best option.
Yep. Yeah, but the tactical brigade kind of doesn't play. From what I've seen, it doesn't really play that like it doesn't play the horde style at all.
No.
It kind of plays MSUE and trucks and stuff like that.
But that's where the move blocking comes up, right?
Right.
'Cause you got the extra units.
But Brian managed to take that one down, 87-50. So a commanding win, and a congratulations to Mr. Brian Jones.
Yeah, wow.
Very impressive.
He didn't have an easy win path either. He hit 2 of his worst matchups.
That's right.
World Eaters and Votan.
Yeah.
And I think he also hit like some world-renowned players too.
I don't have the names of the players. I'm sure they're top of the class for sure.
I think the Votan player was number 1.
Oh yeah. Okay, there you go.
Wow.
Well,
it's not easy.
And even stuff like stuff like Deathwatch, stuff like Space Wolves, like these are matchups that could for sure end the run. So yeah, so to your point, that was not the like Cinderella story like run that you want to see from a Knights player, but we're dealing with one of the best Knights players in the world. So congratulations to Brian Jones.
Deserves that, yeah.
Well deserved. I forgot to mention it before we got into Knights stuff real quick. I want to give a quick shout out, first of all, to the 40K by Night podcast from the fellow podcast.
Yeah.
I've been in their Discord since it launched. I think they've been doing really, really good work out there. It came to our attention in the Discord that Rees Darvill, he was the #1 Knights player for ITC points at the end of the last season.
That's not easy.
That's not easy at all. He's an absolute champ, and I've seen him on stream a few times at a few different events. He has the completely Kermit the Frog themed army. Have you ever seen this before?
I saw a picture. Yeah,
Dude,
I saw a picture.
It's awesome.
Yeah,
it's
super cool. His Countess Assassin even has like a little Kermit head on top. Super cool. Unfortunately, I think it was maybe about a month ago now. Rees had his army in his car, and some fine gentleman, some jackass, busted out the window and stole his army and a bunch of other stuff from his car. So we have started, I think the guy who runs 40K by Night, believe, started it or restarted it, but somebody started a GoFundMe for Rees, so I wanted to plug that here. We will put that down in the doobly-doo, down in the description. Right, Kass?
Yes.
Fantastic.
There, yeah.
We'll put the GoFundMe in there. And if you guys are able to donate a small amount, we've already raised a bunch of money to help him get his army back and to fix his car. So $5-10, whatever it is helpful. We're all kind of getting in there and giving him. You've got to get the champ back on top, man. Guy can't be walking around with no army when you end #1 in ITC.
No, and that's just an awful thing to happen. So
yeah. So quick shout out, Rees. All our love. If our I know our local community is fantastic for their charity work and stuff like that. The event you guys hosted out what was that, last weekend? Feels like forever ago
now. Weekend before.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah,
very recently.
Monday the 3rd right now.
Yeah. We the Warhammer community is fantastic for these kind of things. So let's all get out there and help Rees out. With that out of the way, I do want to give a quick shout out to the guy who came second at Cherokee with Knights.
So crazy at first and second place.
That's awesome. As someone who's been like grinding it out with Knights for a while, it's really, really cool to see. He ran my exact list. There you go. It's a good list. It's super. 14 units.
You ain't first, you're last.
Well, so it's worth noting that
if you don't like Big Red, then fuck you.
It's worth noting. So his name was Chris Bingham, came second at Cherokee. He also went undefeated, but he tied in his last game to the Tyrannid player that Brian Jones did beat.
Oh, I see.
So very, very good player, top level.
A strength of schedule kind of thing too, that kind of push it up.
Yeah, I didn't go through. I didn't go get a breakdown of every single one of his matchups.
It's very good. That's hard to do. Cherokee Open's a massive tournament.
Yeah, it was like 300 people. Like it was huge. It was like 285 or something like that. It was buku to people.
Yeah.
And extremely impressive. So it just kind of goes to show you that you can go wide with a lot of armigers. You can go big with 2 and some cheeky allies play. Knights have a lot of cool options right now.
All right, so I guess if you were to do a list and do it tomorrow, I know your list.
Yep.
What would you do, David?
For singles?
Yeah.
Probably do like bends, but I'd try and fit in a Warden for the -1 damage.
Cool.
Yeah.
How many points is Warden?
He's a little bit expensive.
I want to say.
He's the same cost as Kass. Yeah, it's 450. And you really do want the enhancement on him, so kind of 475. But I guess you get away without.
Is he? Yeah. He's pricey.
He's a little bit pricey. So we do have a tournament, teams tournament coming up in the near future where I'll be taking Knights, and I will not have access to my sister's allies. So I've been kind of crunching up a new list. But in teams, you can, like you said, you can kind of skew a little bit more, right? You can actually be the real stat check. I'm kind of testing out Kass, Lancer, and a bunch of armatures. Nice and easy. Lancer with sticky objective, Kass because he's awesome, and then a bunch of...
I love how you're giving your two opponents their information here.
That's fine. We're buds.
We're buds, but we're on the same team here.
Yeah, that's fine. Whoever wants to...
All right, let's start planning
I said I was just testing with it. You don't know where I'll land. That event's not for
Tech for Ben.
2 months.
Tech for Ben.
You want tech for me? Bring it. Bring it. I played that list almost exactly at that last team event we went up into Edmonton. I played into
no, that's good.
Nate's cultist spam. And we not only team tied, but we points tied.
No, I think
it was dead. It was dead tie.
You went undefeated, actually.
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Because that was my tie. Yeah. It's a good list. Lancer's good. I know it's kind of fallen out of favor a little bit, just because the Atropos and like having a big knight that can both shoot good and fight good is kind of where you want to be. Yeah. You want to be able to activate, and the shooting for the Lancer is negligible. It's good into Eldar bodies, I guess.
Yeah. He lives good.
He lives real good.
Yeah.
You can oftentimes, depending on the matchup, just yeet him at your opponent's expansion objective, and then play the game otherwise, because he'll just like hold down the fort by himself.
When
just
you're
don't roll. Just
going over buildings.
Just roll fours. Oh, we didn't mention that buff. That was the sneaky buff that we had a few changes ago. Big knights can go through walls now.
Yeah, Kool-Aid Man.
That cannot be understated enough. Like, and also the fact that I like that it's not actually a leadership check or a battle shock check, so it doesn't interact with like CSM nonsense or Tyranid nonsense.
It's good. One, they're battle shocked.
You roll a d6 on a 1-year battle shock. That's it. It hurts your feelings when it happens, but holy crap, does that open up the board?
It's really funny when Kass does it, and it's like you can't even use a free reroll now.
Yeah, you get nothing.
Yeah.
You get nothing.
Yeah, all right. Well, I'm still going to charge you, but yeah.
And for the viewers, is that a normal move, fallback move, charge move?
Yeah. But the way to remember it, and that's a very good point actually. The way to remember it is it's only in the movement phase. So whether that's a fallback, whether that's a not a charge, a fallback, a move, or an advance, you're all good. It just cannot happen outside of the movement phase.
Got it.
That's and the way you roll your d6 after you've moved through a wall.
You move through the wall, you finish your move, you roll the d6. You can't like preemptively and then like decide to back up. Yep. You Kool-Aid man through with commitment, or you don't Kool-Aid at all.
With gusto.
With gusto.
Kool-Aid gusto.
Yeah. I think that's it. I think that's kind of what we wanted to touch on for Knights, unless you had any questions there, Kass.
I mean, you guys are very thorough. And when I am about to ask a question, you guys already give me the answer. I hope that's the same for the viewers as well. Yeah, you already know what I'm going to ask.
We're in your head.
I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah. So, I learned a lot. You know, I learned a lot about, especially the Warden. I didn't really know about that squad too well. So,
yeah, he's dope.
Well, you never really play him.
I did play him.
I played against your Knights, I think, in 9th edition. That was the only time I played him.
Yeah.
Actually, we played in that tournament, the Rocky Mountain.
Yeah.
And you beat my butt. We practiced with the exact same list at your house, and I beat you. Yeah. And then we went to the event, and you beat my butt.
Invited you for a practice game.
To get my secrets. And then we played not the top table, but the final game.
I played down on round 5.
Yeah.
And I came second.
And then you beat me up.
Yeah.
Good job.
And rightfully so. You're very good at the game. I think that's it that we want to cover for Knights. I do want to remind everybody who is a local player who is going to be playing in the Warhammer 40K Calgary Championship Spring Edition, the longest name of all time.
Yeah.
Lists, what's today? Today's the 2nd or 3rd?
Today's the 3rd.
Today's the 3rd of March.
Monday.
And lists are due on the 8th, and we are rolling, correct? And we are rolling dice on the 10th. So if your lists are not in, please get them in. Getting in early never hurts. I'm not going to bug everybody for payment quite yet, but get your money in too so you can secure your spot. I would hate to have to punt you after the second round if you're doing good and you didn't pay up. So get your money in, get your lists in. Early never hurts. Some people have already got some in, so I appreciate everybody who has so far.
It's been awesome.
And what are you going to be playing there, Dave? What's your list?
I don't want to play Grey Knights, but I feel like it might be valuable just to have the practice going into the season.
Sure.
I would play World Eaters, but the code, I don't want to play like 3 games with the index when the codex is going to be out.
Ooh, that's
like
fair.
round 4.
Right. Yeah.
That's fair. That's fair.
And then you could be trapped into something that you don't like, or
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's fair. Yeah,
And you can always look at the next season in the winter season, right?
Yeah.
To start playing
exactly.
World Eaters.
Yeah, it's just 6 rounds, so we'll be in the next season in no time. I was actually having the same kind of not to get too much on a tangent, but I'm like trying to decide if I want to do tournament practice in this league, or because there's no paint requirement, a lot of my Necron collection all of a sudden opens up because it's either in no painted state or roughly painted state. So that is kind of cool. I'm excited. I'm very excited to get play and roll some dice with you guys again.
Yeah.
Be cool.
Yeah, it's gonna be awesome.
You're playing Death Guard?
Yeah, I'm committing this year
I think
to
you're going
Death
hard,
Guard,
eh?
regardless of this codex. If I like it or not, I'm committing.
Best in the world.
I'm going.
Oh, you going for number 1?
At least in Canada. I got number 2 last season.
Oh, did you?
Canada.
Nicely done. Nicely
So
done.
I want to get number 1 in Canada this year at least, and give Aiden a run for his money. And I know you're listening.
Get him. Beat him up. I was checking the ITC before I came in here. I think I'm number 5 in Knights in Canada right now. So can only get better.
There's a lot of Knight players in Canada too. It's tough
yeah,
competition.
It is tough competition.
Are
but
you number?
I don't know if you're
6?
on ranked for.
No, I didn't play any tournaments with Knights.
Well, the most recent one. Was
No,
on
it's
there.
all reset, right? So
Yeah.
you did.
Anyway,
sure.
we'll figure it out. We'll talk shit about our dick swinging points another time.
Yeah.
For now, thank you everybody for joining us. As always, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and smash that notification bell so you never miss an episode of Bloodbath Tactics.
Thanks, everyone.
See ya.
Woo-hee.